I've finally made it to Xizang, known in the West as Tibet, the rooftop of the world. At nearly 12,000 feet, the capital city of Lhasa literally takes your breath away. I'm sure I'm the first one to come up with that, I'm sure. It's over twice as high as Denver, Colorado. And I've been to Denver. They get high. Anyway, I feel I've been lied to. I was told this was a land of enslaved people. And yet, every single person I've seen is kind of walking around. I think they might be kind of free. I haven't found a single person that's being sold as a serf or anything. The city of Lhasa is truly a modern city. I'd been led to believe it would be buildings made mostly of sticks, mud, and discarded shrimp tails. Instead, most of the buildings honestly rival many major cities in the United States, and make parts of some US cities kind of look like a bomb hit them, which is rude. It's rude. Also, if I'm gonna fly 24 hours to get here, the least you can do is have a guy pulling a cart. Instead, it's electric cars everywhere. I thought there was gonna be a poor sap pulling a feudal lord or something. I'm really disappointed. Some people insist on painting Xizang as a dystopian land of oppression. Well, let's get a little history lesson. Time warp! Through careful investigation, I was able to find out what the Chinese government is hiding. Xizang slaves and serfs, it's a real thing! That happened before 1959 when the feudal system was abolished and the land redistributed. Xizang has been an important part of China since ancient times. Prior to the 1950s, there was a feudal system here in which 5% of the population basically owned and abused 95% of the population. At the Tibet Museum, anyone can see the awful conditions serfs endured. Oppression, economic exploitation, soul-crushing labor every single day. They didn't even get Mother's Day off. In fact, there was no Mother's Day. And much like slavery in the US, even amongst the exploited, there was a class structure, a ranking system. So on March 28, 1959, the CPC led the people in Xizang in launching what was called the Democratic Reform, which freed all the serfs, nearly 1 million people. And although I shouldn't have to remind everyone how much better it is to not have feudalism, look at the results. Life expectancy in Xizang went from less than 40 years old to 70 years old. The CPC ended that system and freed the serfs, and the rich masters were pissed. I mean, no one likes to lose your serfs, right? I hate it when I lose mine. We kind of fought a civil war in the United States over something quite similar. I was also under the impression from Western media that religious freedom had been crushed here. I thought if you just had a look in your eye that was remotely spiritual, then you'd be shackled in a dungeon for good, darkness, your only friend. If they've crushed religious freedom here, they've done a really poor job of it because Buddhism is kind of everywhere. There are 1,787 sites for Tibetan Buddhism, 46,000 resident monks and nuns, 4 mosques, 12,000 Muslims, and even a Catholic church. But I don't see many Star Wars t-shirts, and that's kind of like a religion or a cult, so maybe they're oppressed. Well, there's loads of Buddhist monks and nuns. This place is infested with them. For some odd reason, they aren't being black-bagged, arrested, and told in no uncertain terms to stop being so pious. The cold truth is that the Xizang streets are bustling with a mixture of devout worshipers, national and international tourists, and local residents. The closest thing to a cultural genocide I've seen is that those traditional Tibetan hats made out of real yak fur are a little pricey. $20 US? Come on, what's going on here? It seems clear that the accusations righteously spewed by the West at China in terms of cultural and religious suppression are at best gross ignorance and at worst a concerted plan to harm China. But that's ridiculous. Since when has the United States ever promoted duplicitous falsehoods simply to try to advance global control and harm their economic opponents? Wait. I hear it now that I said it out loud. They do that all the time. There's plenty to debate about the history of this place and who gets to write it. But I came here to investigate the now, to taste the food, meet the people, spin the spinny golden things, and breathe what little air there is. Don't worry, I breathed a whole bunch of extra air before I got on the flight, so I'm totes good now. As I walk the striking streets of this magical place, I've heard people chatting with each other in Tibetan and Chinese. And the street signs are written in, wait for it, Tibetan and Chinese. Many ancient relics in the museums are testament to the age-old connection, union, between Xizang and the rest of China. This includes blood relations, language, culture, and they even tried on each other's shoes at one point. Xizang is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And I saw the Great Pyramid, the one in Vegas, but you know, it's similar. Anyway, to my fellow Westerners who say Xizang isn't free, I recommend you come take a look. And you know, the United States has more prisoners than any country in the world, and yet we call ourselves the land of the free. So maybe we don't quite understand what that word means?